Hello. I want to say a few words about using references and citations. You need to do this for your essay. Your assignment is to write 4 essays on set topics in response to specific questions on each topic, and therefore the assignment is pretty straightforward. But, and I'm sorry to shout in all caps, can't emphasize this strongly enough. Essay exam assignment is not a term paper. It's not a research paper. It does not require accessing the internet, nor for that matter, does it require accessing any readings other than the ones assigned for the course. You might, of course, do supplemental reading, and it's always a good thing to read more. But my point is this: you should be able to do an excellent job on your essays without ever having to cite sources. However, if you do so, then please be sure that you do it correctly. What do I mean by correctly? If what you say in your essay depends substantially on another source, then you need to indicate that clearly to your reader. If that dependence takes the form of a direct quotation, there are 2 ways to indicate that. If it's a short quote, you use quotation marks. If it's a long one, you offset the paragraph with appropriate sources indicated in either event. There are two general ways to do this, and I'll accept either. Their footnote or the end note. This is the standard method in the humanities. Think Turabian, Chicago, or MLA style sheet. Or the other one is to use one of the social science citation formats. Think American Psychological Association, American Sociological Association. This is also known as the author date method, and current editions of Turabian will cover that one as well. By the way, when I refer to Turabian, I'm referring to the Chicago Manual of Style. This is, I don't know if you can see it, this is an older edition, the 13th edition. This is what I used when I was a student. It is very thick, but it is definitive. And, if you want to know about questions like, do I underline or do I italicize titles of books or movies, this is the definitive source for that. When I don't have it handy to me now, but I didn't when I was writing as a student. There's a thinner edition, a condensed edition that covers the basic topics, just as there is online now. So you can consult Turabian without necessarily having, as I did, to acquire the whole cow. But either way, whether you use the footnotes or the endnotes, the difference is footnotes are numbered notes that occur at the bottom of the page that you're writing, or you can just leave them all to the end of the page and do them in one group as endnotes. If you do the social science, you're going to be putting the author date in the text of your essay, and then you're going to have a reference section alphabetically of all the references you referred to throughout the paper. Either way will do, because either way, what you're doing is you're saying to the reader, this is the source of what I'm saying, if you need to do that. Here is a couple of snips from the Turabian online, and there is the URL if you want to do it. And you'll see there's a toggle switch there. You can go to the notes and bibliography style and start there to put notes or endnotes, or you can go to the author date style and start there. Either way, that website will help you if you need. And again, I stress, if you need to do this. However, you don't maybe not need to pay attention to any of this if you're just writing an essay with no special dependence on any outside sources. And again, you can do an excellent essay without having to consult anything other than the readings we will have done in this class. For the midterm, that'll be minimal. For the final, it'll be a little more. The lectures, and what you've learned, because that's really what this essay is attempting to assess. If you do, however, depend on outside sources, make it clear to the reader what the nature of that dependence is. And you can either be indirectly referencing or you can be directly quoting. Let me give you some hypothetical examples. Let's say I want to talk about Karl Popper and his views on language, and he has some distinctive and really audacious views in the philosophy of language. Okay, I can make indirect reference to, let's say, Popper's book, Objective Knowledge. I'm not quoting anything directly from it. I'm not even referring specifically to any idea within the book, but I'm referring to the book in general. So I can say in my text, Karl Popper has the most audacious challenge to language philosophy, footnote 1. And at either the bottom for a footnote or at the end of the paper for an endnote, I'm going to link that number 1, superscript 1, to title of the author's name, Karl Popper, the title, Objective Knowledge, publisher, and the year. Okay, and that's an appropriate reference. Let's say I want to use the date author style. Okay, I want to do the same thing. Karl Popper has the most audacious challenge to language philosophy. Again, I'm not referring to any specific idea or specific reference, or I'm not quoting directly. So I'll just say, I'll put the Karl Popper 1972 in the text, and then at the very end, I'll have a listing of references. I'll say Popper Karl, it's time to alphabetize my last name. Years 1972, book is Objective Knowledge, publisher is Clarendon University. Now, maybe on the other hand, instead of indirectly referencing, I want to quote something directly that he said. So I would say in the text of my paper, Karl Popper goes so far as to say, quote, words don't matter, unquote. Then I put a footnote, superscript 1, which is linked either at the bottom footnote or at the end note to Karl Popper, Objective Knowledge, Oxford, Clarendon, 1972. This time I indicate I'm talking about page 18 because page 18 is the specific page on which this specific quotation is given. I wanted to do the same thing with the author date style. I would say Karl Popper, in parentheses, 1972. That's the year of the work I'm referring to, but I'd put colon 18 to indicate it's page 18 specifically. It says specifically, words don't matter, unquote, quote unquote. And then at the end, I have the references. I would have to give the page there because I've already given that in text. I would just give the reference. So those are paradigm examples. If you're going to do this, if you're going to quote or refer indirectly to any outside source, that's what you want to do. And please be sure that you do use one of the appropriate means if this is what you end up doing. Now, again, there's no need to dignify class lectures as if they were actual sources. Some people have done this in the past, quoted Professor Kavanaugh. No, don't worry about that. Just, this came up in the course of the lecture. We all know they did. You're going to quote something directly, quote it directly, but you really don't need to quote it directly. You could just refer. So in my paper, I might say, the three branches of philosophy are metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology indicate that. You don't even need to indicate that. Then you go on that being said, however, there's really no reason to quote the lecturer verbatim if you're even going to make that reference. And again, not necessary to do so. In any event, for this assignment, which is not a term paper, again, references, particularly direct quotations, need to be kept to a minimum. Sometimes, yes, another writer just says something so well, you couldn't improve on it, I couldn't improve on it. Okay, and you quote them, they're quotable. But do this sparingly. And do beware of any paper that turns into just a mosaic string of quotations by other people. That's not really a paper. And again, this is something I address in those two videos, and they're referenced at the bottom, which I've given you also to prepare on what's plagiarism and what's the difference between research and copying. But again, really what you want to do is you want to say in your own words what you've learned on the questions you're being asked. So if you don't find you need to use outside references, that's perfectly good. You're not going to get a better grade just because you use outside references. I'm actually going to read these papers and I'm going to read them for content. I hope this is helpful, and I say good day and good luck, and get to work.